Now. Oh, I guess I'm live. We're live now, guys.
All right.
I thought there was a
Perfect.
countdown, but there's no countdown. So today we have one of my good friends, Chris Montes, new acquaintance from Mario, my co-host. And guys, welcome to Gentlemen of Leisure. We're here to support you in creating financial freedom and living well. And our tagline is Discover Joy. So Chris, would you mind giving us just a real quick background about yourself, and then we can get on with it after that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Werner, Mario, thank you guys for having me. First of all, it's an honor to be here and pleasure to be chatting with you guys and everybody that's listening in here. A little bit of background on me. I mean, I'm based out of Southern California. I'm in Los Angeles, Southern California native. Whole career has been in banking. I'm a mortgage banker today for Walker and Dunlop. Do a variety of things. Help people on the debt side, help people raise equity, facilitate commercial real estate transactions. And I got a variety of personal investing stuff that I do as well in a variety of fronts. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm married to a beautiful woman, Amanda, and we got two dogs, two little Maltese, little feisty girls, and but they're our everything. They're our daughters today. We don't have kids, so those are our daughters. Um, so yeah.
That's awesome. So, what's the lifestyle that you're looking to create? As on this channel, Mara and we just really rebranded from Red to Black Podcast to Gentlemen of Leisure to talk more about living well, and we're talking about planes, hunting, whatever it is you're into as an individual. What's the lifestyle? If you had to take us 10 years from now, what does that look like, and how are you in terms of how close are you to that lifestyle?
Yeah, it's a good question, Werner. I would say lifestyle 10 years from now, just to have a ton of flexibility, right? Like not to be necessarily strapped into, not to say that I'm strapped into a 9 to 5 today, because I'm a sales guy, so I have probably a lot more flexibility than maybe the average person. But also there's also the benchmarks of success for being a good sales guy as well, right? So I carry that weight. But I would say 10 years from now, flexibility from a time standpoint, from a commitment standpoint. I'd also say just, having other investments that are generating, cash flow and are sustaining themselves and providing for me and my family, as well as, some travel. My wife and I, we got back from Greece last month. We were there for about 8 days. Fantastic trip. And we went Santorini, Mykonos Island, Athens and Corinth all in 8 days with 2 days of travel. So we try to pack it all in as best as we can. But we tend to get bored if we're just sitting around doing nothing. So we're trying to kind of get it all in there. And we got another trip to Italy coming up in October. So and that'll be Venice, Florence, Tuscany, and maybe we'll fit something else in there. But that's going to be 8 days as well. Going to try to pack in as much as we can. And yeah, just have some fun with it. Like obviously it'll be great to be in Europe. It'll be great to be in Italy. Last time, and Werner, I mentioned this to you over brunch a couple of days ago. Amanda and I were in Greece, and we found out about this golden visa, right? Like if you spend 250,000 euros on real estate in Greece, you get a golden visa, which gives you access to be in any European country all year, to work there, to live there. You could rent out the property, you could live in the property. Also, after 7 years, you can get dual citizenship. So you can be a European citizen and an American citizen. So we're just thinking about the possibilities, not just for us with travel, but also maybe professional opportunities, right? And also just as we're diversifying our investments and different things that we do, most of that's here in the US. So how does that play into Europe? We're thinking about that. And then lastly, and probably the most important, at least to me, I don't know what Amanda would say on this, but just thinking about the access for our kids someday, right? Like if they're dual citizens of Europe and the US, just think about from an educational standpoint, from a professional standpoint, it just opens up the doors where there's typically a closed door. So, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Werner, but that's kind of 10 years from now, and also the stuff that we're doing right now. So
No, you did. What I want the if any viewer listening right now or in the future watching this episode, I want you to listen to Chris's language. The language was very sort of generational. It was like he was creating a language that you could kind of live in, that was creating a possibility. And I'm thinking of like other possibilities. That's sort of the language of a gentleman of leisure. You said it, flexibility, possibility. Those are the two key words I sort of tuned into. And that's what we're really creating in life. And the key way to do that, which I can, if Mara, if you want to ask a question on this one, is setting up your financial freedom. Because, you know, I'll hear it from my siblings like, oh, well, I don't want to focus on making money. I'm like, making money and having financial freedom is what you do with 80% of your time. If you look at where we spend our time Monday through Friday and maybe on the weekends. So it's an essential component, and not taking that into account and thinking about that, in my opinion, and probably Mara's opinion, is an ineffective way to set yourself up for a life of sort of, you know, doing leisure when you want to do leisure. So Mara, you have any questions for Chris?
Yeah, I guess I'll make one point and then I'll ask a question. I think it's an excellent idea to be able to have dual citizenship or a visa in a wonderful part of the world like Europe. And what that allows you to do very specifically is go where you're treated best during times when maybe your country or the world is not necessarily treating people with the respect and the autonomy that we are endowed with. So I think that's an excellent idea. The second thing, or the question, the follow up to that is, what did you do specifically in your 20s, your early 20s, that set you up in your late 30s or 40s to be able to have that freedom, that travel, that flexibility to be able to go experience Europe, to go experience Italy and Greece?
That's a great question, Mario. I think a couple of things. I think number one, I mean, I was a nerd as a kid. I'll just be honest with you guys. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm still a nerd today. Maybe that's obvious, but like as a kid, like just in the library on Friday nights type thing. So I don't know. I like studying. You know, I'm probably overly educated. So not to say that all of that education is being utilized today. You know, I think that education was more so I found out about myself more than anything, like habits that work for me, habits that don't work for me. And so the education, just meeting other people, the network that provided me, I think was really beneficial. I think also just in my 20s, you know, and even now, it's even in my 30s, I still have this today, is just remembering where I came from, you know, remembering where my parents came from, my grandparents came from, right? Like, you know, I don't, you know, I'm probably the most educated, most high up on the corporate ladder of anybody in my family, right? Like my parents didn't go to college. You know, my grandparents worked in the fields. So just the perspective of thinking about the sacrifices that they made and the availability of options that are provided to me as a result of that, just not taking it for granted, right? Just because I live in LA or I live in California, I live in the United States, and not just being comfortable, like always wanting to grind a little bit, like as a younger guy, but even now, you know, and honestly, thinking about my dad, my grandpa, my mom, my grandma, all that stuff, it's motivating as well. Anytime it's like I feel like a little lazy, I'm like I think about like my grandpa picking lemons up and down the coast, or I think about my dad delivering newspapers or selling his paintings on the beach in Santa Barbara, or you know whatever he was doing to sustain us while we grew up there. I'm just like, man, I got it pretty good. So that puts it in perspective. But also, there's a level of I don't know, accountability to the family, right? Like my parents didn't work hard for no reason. My grandparents didn't work hard for no reason. I don't want to take it for granted. So I think that perspective, and then also the education, obviously learning a lot in school, but learning various habits and traits and meeting people in school. I think both those things helped me a lot.
So that's great, Chris. I mean, those are like really cool things that motivate you. And Mario has some of those in his past too.
Yeah, I had a 20-year relationship with the Value Line Investment Survey at, Chicago libraries, Midwest libraries, West Coast libraries. I spent, my late teens and early 20s in libraries, after school, after work, after, you know, uh, you know, anytime I could get in there and just have this relationship with that Value Line Investment Survey, massive volumes of data
Yeah.
and going through them. So yeah, I can relate.
Hey, it's funny. I used to joke with people that I'd spend my Fridays and Saturdays, and the university that I went to had a really good library in the engineering school. So I went to the engineering school to go study all the time, and people didn't believe that I was actually in the library. But I don't know, you know, I wasn't always in the library. I was also a bad student at one point in time, but I figured it out, fortunately.
Yeah. So sort of expounding on, I mean, since we only have 30 minutes here, guys, for your listening, I would sort of recreate Chris Moore and what he created about his childhood. I don't want to demean that at all, but for the purposes of time, on top of that, those great foundational components you have for your life. Now, in terms of performance, what does that look like on the ground? I know you've bought some duplexes, you're doing 4 or 5 ADUs, which is a good
Yeah.
amount of work, and you're a loan broker, so you're got a full-time job there. And then you also have a horse, which I thought
Right.
was super cool. So there's a whole economics behind horse racing that
Yeah.
they know in Kentucky and areas of California and who's at in northern New York, really where Amanda's from,
Yep.
really, really well. So if you could talk a little about the performance piece that's setting you up. So you have the foundational motivational piece, now the performance piece to set you up to go to a place like Greece and Italy. We'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Yeah. I'll start with the horse because the horse is the funnest part of it all, I think. So she's a thoroughbred. She's a filly. She's 2 years old, and she's got a great bloodline. Her brother is a very well-known horse. I think in the world. He lives in Japan now. Her brother, but California Chrome, which was like the most winningest horse in California history, and he was sold after racing to a Japanese owner, so that's why he's in Japan now. But our horse's name is Blazing Bay, and she, we're learning a lot. I don't have a huge background in horses and racing. It's really something that we came into through some family that's really involved in the horse industry. Not even necessarily horse racing, but more so rodeo and breaking horses and training horses. We came across this horse, and for years I was talking to my relative about investing in his business with him because he talked to me about the margins, and I was like, man, like if we got those kind of margins in real estate, like people would be salivating over these deals. So I was always kind of trying to get into his business with him, come in as a limited partner, an equity partner, somebody that could provide capital and take part in his business. And he approached us about this horse one day that actually grew up on his ranch, and he knew really well. So he knew he knew what it ate. He knew its parents. He knew its training. He knew all this stuff. And she's still going through training now. So she's still training to race, and hopefully she starts racing in October of this year. And that's, we got into that as an investment. I would say that is an investment, but it's also a lot of fun for us. I wouldn't necessarily, if you talk to experts in the thoroughbred racing industry, most of them will tell you not to get into it from an investment standpoint. You could argue that that's maybe a little pessimistic of a view, but I would say for us, we do see it as an investment. Everything that we put into her, from the food that she's eating to make sure it's high quality, getting the right training, having proper insurance, her vet taking care of her. So all these different things are investments into her so that she can run healthy. And when running healthy, hopefully she can perform at her peak. And then performing at her peak, hopefully she doesn't get injured, and hopefully she wins some money. And it'll be a lot of fun at the same time. So that's why we got into that. In terms of other diversified investment stuff, you're right. We bought a couple of duplexes over the past couple of months. We're in escrow on 2 more. I actually just came from one early this morning for an inspection just to make sure the property was okay before we closed. And our strategy there is a little unique. I think we're doing something that not a lot of folks are doing. I mean, we're buying really duplexes and triplexes on very large lots in Los Angeles, and these lots are extremely buildable. So I have some friends and people that I know that are developers and know, various offices at the city of LA very well, and knows the zoning code very well, and kind of how to maximize our net rentable footprint on any of these properties. And for us, we're looking at that as really like a short to medium term investment. I think our equity multiple on most of this stuff is probably a 2 in the first 2 years, which is pretty good, I think. So that's what we're doing from the commercial real estate front. And then, like you said, Werner, I am a mortgage banker, so that is my day job, quote unquote day job, and that's what I do, full time. And that really entails providing the best support to clients, both on the debt and on the equity front. So trying to get the best loan possible for them to meet their objective. And secondly, on the equity side, if they need help raising money for anything they're looking to purchase, then I assist on that side. But We're always looking to diversify even more. I mean, we talked about the horse, we talked about these duplexes, the equity multiple on that. As a mortgage banker, there's obviously cash flow from that position that I'm in. But we're always looking, to get into other stuff, and it's really finding people that are passionate about things. Like it's almost like you guys have watched Shark Tank, I'm sure. Like, Mark Cuban is investing in a deal, or whoever the shark is, in somebody that's passionate about that product or service that was created, and they're coming alongside providing some equity to help facilitate their passion and to grow with them and reap some economic benefit. Now, I look for that all the time, like in my family, friend circle, neighbors, like clients. Like, I'm always just chatting with them, seeing what they're up to. And, if there is an opportunity to come in as an equity partner, I'll try to partner to help them grow, but also to make some money and also diversify our portfolio, because we're in real estate, we're in the market, we're in crypto. We got this horse now for the past year. So just, and going back to the Greece, conversation about buying real estate there for 250,000 euros or more, we may be in Europe with Airbnb property as well to diversify. So we're just trying not to have too many eggs in one basket and trying to stay balanced, really, but also, trying to be smart about it. I was going to say prudent. I think prudent and smart, but sometimes you got to take some risks. So being prudent, you can't always do that. Depends on your upside. Depends on what you're looking for. So
What does 250 buy you in Greece compared to LA? I'm kind of familiar with the LA real estate scene. So what do you
yeah,
get as far as value for 250 in Greece besides the access to Europe?
yep, it's a good question. So 250 in Greece, I would say, would get you on an island or maybe 2 blocks from the water on the mainland, a 4 or 5 bedroom house, maybe 3,000 square feet. Pretty good size house, or duplex or triplex. So it gets you a lot, actually. You can actually buy something on the water, on an island or on the mainland, or within 2 blocks of the water for really probably about 140, 170. You don't have to spend 250. You can live there for much cheaper. But if you want access to the golden visa, then the dual citizenship 7 years down the line, it has to be at that 250 minimum to qualify.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's and
we.
it's super cheap too. Like, think about household income here in the U.S. or in LA. Household income in Athens, Greece, is about 15,000 euros a year, right? And you're doing well in Athens if you're doing 30,000 euros a year, like doing well, like going out to dinner or entertainment. Now imagine you bring some of your portfolio over to Europe. We've thought about maybe retiring there at some point, just access to Europe, different aspects of the country, and we're not going to burn as much cash flow living in Europe as we would in Calabasas, Los Angeles. So
So I want to say one thing, a huge component of sort of this idea of a gentleman of leisure. Like, some people in their mind, because if you look online, we took that term not to mean you're going to like some, massage parlor to get a happy ending. It's a way of living where you have passive income that supports you to really go after your dreams. That's what I hear in your voice, Chris, is this like you've gone to a financial level, as myself, Mario, where you can dream more. There's like more room for dreaming and more room for thinking, because you're not, I've been down to negative 30 grand on my credit card 2 times. I've had a $635,000 mortgage I was barely making in the military. I was living in my car at one point. I mean, just crazy situations I put myself in. And I started out with 200K and then just burned through all of it, supporting that house. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons that you want to avoid being at the bottom, but it can also teach you invaluable lessons not to go back there. But when you're
yeah,
up, you have just, when you have cash flow and it's covering your food and water, shelter, mobility, all the other basics, it enables you to dream. And that's what I hear in your voice. You're like, and I'm like, I'm doing pretty well, but when someone else is dreaming, I'm like, oh, I like part of Chris's dream. I want some of that. Oh, I want to be in Greece. And we talked about possibly partnering up on an Airbnb, because I think Greece is going to be the next big sort of vacation spot in Europe, as every other area kind of gets priced out and there's a little bit of grittiness going on in the rest of Europe. So
yeah.
really fascinating. Mario, any other questions along the lines of what you've been talking about?
No, just for the young guys listening to us, sometimes these prices in America just seem unattainable. But if you can delay gratification, I learned all my hardship lessons vicariously through Warner's financial issues in his 20s. If you can delay gratification and look out, expand your thought to like, I want to live in Vail. Well, Vail might be 10 or $20 million or $40 million, or Aspen might be, $25 million to live in Aspen, but it's like Argentina, it's Chile. There's world-class skiing down in South America. And the purchasing power of the dollar gets you way more value than in Vail. So that $10 million might be $300,000, same quality house, same quality, same restaurants, same quality services, same lifestyle, way more value. So looking at the entire world and expanding your globe, not getting so focused on just where you do business. It's great to do business in Southern California. It's great to make a living in US dollars. But when you're looking at your recreational opportunities, look outside of America. And sometimes you're getting way more value for that US dollar, especially in like Greece or Europe. Are they still, Chris, are they still on the euro, or are they falling off the euro? Okay.
They are still on the euro. And I would say, not, any European country, you can get that golden visa. There's different price points for getting that. Like if you're in Spain, it's 300,000 euros. But the Greece economy right now, it's kind of a good, how in the US, it's like with the rates coming up, everyone's like, well, maybe you slow down a little bit. Greece is kind of in the opposite spot where it's like, it's sort of at the bottom. And people are like, wait, are we going to go into like an extreme recession again? Because they've been through a couple of them. So everyone's very, risk averse. So that's why you see these prices, like for a 4 or 5 bedroom house on the water on an island, $250,000, maybe better than that. So good opportunity, and at least we think, our biggest obstacle, and Werner, we talked about this over brunch, was just if we're operating an Airbnb property overseas, who's running that day to day, meeting people on the ground, people to sustain that, because it's good in theory, the cash flow and the nightly rent and all that stuff, but then you need to buy furniture and you need to have a handyman, you need to have a property manager. So all that infrastructure around it takes a little bit of time. So your first couple of months, it's like you're probably not making that much money because you're figuring that out. But once you build the machine and it's going, you almost don't even have to think about it anymore. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Mario. Sorry.
Can you just expand on kind of what is the like restaurant nightlife, like what is the lifestyle like when you're there? I know you're only there for 8 days. You guys were traveling all around, but can you kind of describe? I've been to Spain, been to road to Spain, never been to Greece or Italy, but can you kind of describe that, Southern Mediterranean lifestyle of olives and feta and the salads and the wine and the really slow meals, where if you go to a meal in LA, it's like, would you like dessert? Here's your check. And
90 minutes. You got 90 minutes in LA.
Over there, it's like they're just stretching it out as long as possible, because maybe you'll get hungry and order something else. If we can stretch this meal out long enough, maybe you'll get thirsty. Maybe you'll want another entree. Maybe somebody from town will come to the restaurant and they'll sit down, and that'll stretch it out even longer. It's a much different pace.
It's so true. It's so true. I would say so nightlife and the scene, the culture over there, I mean, it's a very family and food oriented culture, which I love. I'm Latino, so I have a big family and we got a lot of people in our family, but the food, impressive. A lot of people spoke English, which was awesome. I don't speak Greek, and neither does my wife. And we're kind of concerned, like, how are we going to get around when we get away from some of the more touristy areas? But everyone spoke English, which was awesome as well. Some great olive oils. We found out when we were in Greece that there's the same way when you look at the back of the label here in the US on anything you buy, there's like calories, sugar, all these different things. In Greece, there's this thing called phenos on olive oil. And that talks to the quality of the olive oil and the age of the tree that those olives came from. And there's like health, there's various benefits to your health, the higher the degree of those phenos go. So if you get an olive oil, and you'll have a hard time finding olive oil in the States that measures a pheno count, you might be able to actually get it from a Whole Food. There's a brand that me and my wife were talking about because one of her friends, they have olive orchards in Italy, so that they brought to Whole Food. But outside of that, you'll have a hard time seeing phenos measured on a label for any olive oil here in the US. But in Greece, you could actually see it. So you'll buy, average quality olive oil there, which is super high quality olive oil here, and it may be for a canister, I don't know, $5 or $6. you buy something that has 50 phenos in it, that may be $250 for that same canister. You buy something that has 2,000 phenos, maybe $1,000 because of the health benefits of it. So we thought that was really interesting. But the wine was good, the food is good. I would say the nightlife, Mykonos Island is like the Vegas of Europe, and we spent our first 3 days there. And literally, not even joking, like my wife and I, we got up for a run. It was like 6:30, 7 a.m. one day to go for a run. This was on a Sunday morning. Went for a run downtown. We thought it'd be cool to run through all the, where the restaurants are at, the bars, and kind of just see it during the day versus at night, because we've been walking around the night before and having a drink. And people are still in the clubs, still having fun, like still coming out, and like people are looking at us, like just saying like, "Hey, bravo, this is awesome! You guys, can't believe you guys are going for a run right now. It's still so early, like the night is young, but it was like 7 a.m. So it's a big party scene in Mykonos, I would say. Santorini was beautiful as well. Great food, visually very stunning. A little bit more mature of a demographic, not the same kind of like Vegas vibe. And then Athens was phenomenal as well. Had good balance, on the marina, on the ocean, or on the seaside. A lot of great restaurants and a ton of really cool bars. Meals start. I'm sure it's probably the same way in Spain. Meals start a lot later, like dinner. I think we showed up for dinner at like 7. There was literally nobody at the restaurant our first day in Athens. And then we left, it was like, I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock. And when we were leaving, it was getting busy. We went for a walk, we walked back around, it was like 10:15. Then the restaurants were all packed. And then the bars were all empty. Like it was like 10:45, like nobody's at the bar, And I imagine like similar to Mykonos Island, in Athens, those bars probably started to fill up at like 1 or 2 a.m. and went till 7 a.m. It's just a different, when you have the siesta in the middle of the day, right.
That changes everything. That 30-minute nap, that 1 hour nap after lunch. Oh yeah, that extends your night way long. Chris, I just reiterate your point about like health and the olive oils and stuff like that. You look at, there's two guys that Warner and I have been following for 20 years, Richard Branson and the CEO of Oracle,
Larry
Ellison. And those guys look, 10, 20, 30 years younger than they actually are. They're in their 70s, but they're living in the wintertime. They're living in places where they get plenty of vitamin D. They're eating probably incredible diets, high in omega-3s. And then they're also working out. They got personal trainers. They're still putting on mass in their 70s. So living in Greece, living in Spain, spending time, in the south of France, Italy. I think that's really good in the wintertime for your skin and for your health.
Yeah, I love it.
And Chris, we'll give you the last. You got about 2 minutes left, so I want to be respectful of your next appointment. So, if you have any parting words of wisdom for anyone that potentially will watch this episode in the future, what is your advice on how do you set yourself up to live well? What are some key? I know I'm asking some interesting questions.
No, it's good.
Provoking questions. What is your advice on how to set yourself up to live well?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is just the people you surround yourself with, right? Like, I think it's good to have people that are maybe a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Maybe I shouldn't say old. That's probably the wrong politically correct term. More mature, more seasoned, right? The better term. Around you, right? To speak into your life, to encourage you, right? But 2, also to be somebody as a role model that maybe you want to be similar to or kind of be like. I think having people like that in your life is extremely important, and not just one, but like, a couple, and just making sure that those people that you have in your life that are speaking into your life, making sure that area that they're speaking into your life, they're actually successful in, right? Like I had a buddy that was never like in a meaningful relationship at all. And he was trying to give me all this relationship advice. And I'm like, dude, you never even been married. You can't hold a girlfriend for longer than like a year. It's like, you're probably not the guy to be talking to me about this. Like, I appreciate, like, I love you, man, but like, I appreciate, like, you don't have to, I have somebody for that. Thank you. And then the same is true for like, if you want somebody in your life that can talk into being an entrepreneur, it's probably best to get a successful entrepreneur in your circle versus somebody that talks about being an entrepreneur, right? Or somebody that's never been an entrepreneur. So that's one side of it. The other side of it in your circle, I would say, finding other younger men and women around you that you can mentor and give back to, right? It's an act of generosity, but I would say having people like that in your life helps to ground you as well. And it also helps to just, you learn, like when you actually have to teach, like imagine, like remember the last time you were in school and you actually had a presentation in front of your class, like unless you came completely unprepared, generally you knew that content well, like a lot better than when you're sitting in class and
Yeah,
raising
exactly.
your hand or like, ignoring the teacher and on your phone or whatever it is that we're doing, like, so when you teach it, you learn it a lot better. So if you're trying to reinforce principles and stuff that you live by, abide by, and where you want to be, saying that and explaining it to somebody and teaching somebody helps to reinforce it for you. And, just on that same comment of generational sort of thinking, I mean, we're only going to live so long, right? So what's the next generation doing in the next generation, right? So I think, those would be my words of wisdom.
Yeah, Chris, we appreciate your time. We appreciate the viewers' time. Thank you for taking your hard-earned time, 30 minutes out of your day to watch this interview. If this had an impact on you, you know what to do. If that's you, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends and family, comment if you have any questions on other topics you'd like to hear. And again, we look forward to connecting with each and every one of you in the future.